Hey, 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 hey. Peace and blessings, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Allow me to get set up here real quick. Just make sure this is being shared. But good morning, good morning. I'll be really brief this morning. Just had a quick topic that I wanted to talk about that's hitting me in my heart this morning. But good morning, everyone. Give some folks some time to jump in. All right, it's shared. Good morning, folks. Good morning. Good morning. Peace and blessings to everyone. Peace and blessings to all my beautiful, bold black people listening and watching around Baltimore City and around the country and hopefully around the globe. And as I always say, our energy is strong and it runs throughout the universe. So hopefully, someone throughout the universe may be feeling this spiritual connection this morning and uh, hopefully are listening. But good morning, folks. Welcome to this morning's the morning burnt toast. I usually do these when there's like usually a particular topic or issue that's going on in the community. And I just really feel that it's important that we need to have this quick discussion in reference to what is going on in our community. Really quick though, before I get started, this is being brought to you by Urban City News. If you'd like to be able to just support us, uh, we do this strictly out of the heart, but uh, we definitely could use your support. Um, and if you'd like to at any time give that support, please do so. Let's see here. Y'all have to bear with me because I'm uh, utilizing a whole different platform, a whole new platform than what we've been uh, normally using. But give me 1 second here. Um, but let's see here. Um, there we go. Let's see. But good morning, family. Again, this is being brought to you by Urban City News. And if you'd uh, love to be able to help us out, um, you can do so by, and let's see, get this to display here. Um, hmm, hold on here. Hold on, hold on. You can do so by just giving whatever you can to $ Urban City News. Again, that is Urban City News. And any support that you guys decide to give is always greatly appreciated. Let's see here. Let me let me do this. Let's see. I think, but yeah, any support that you can give, of course, helps out and helps me get gas to get around, things like that. Um, but it is definitely greatly appreciated. Let's see here. That's not it. That didn't show up right. Let's see if we can. Trying to get this to show up. Let's see. But good morning, good morning, good morning, family. Um, so much going on in the city, but uh, what's really disturbing me this morning and um, are aging adults. We have been working with our senior community, our aging adult community. That folks say you're not supposed to say seniors, but our aging adult community for quite some time. I've told y'all about the story of a lady who came up from Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. She's been up here for quite some time, of course, if she's still here from Katrina. Um, FEMA brought her up here, put her in the McCullough homes in the senior side of the buildings, and left her there. Nobody's never checked up with her, followed up with her, did anything like that in reference to FEMA. And she's still there. Um, she's still there. Her family, she came up here with her daughter. Her daughter has passed away. When we met her, she had this huge scar on the side of her face. She had a scar on the side of her face because the linoleum tile in her unit, which constantly came up off of the floor because it obviously wasn't put down properly. Um, she slipped on the linoleum tile. One of the tiles came out and she fell with a glass in her hand, and the glass hit the ground, broke, and the shard pieces of the glass hit the side of her face, and she had these huge gashes in the side of her face. And with our people, there's a lot of pride. So when we're older adults, we don't want people prying into our business. A lot of times we want to kind of stay definitely um, private about our lives. We don't want anybody meddling in our lives. We just want to just live and not be bothered. But in some cases, they are afraid, or in some cases, because of their pride, they don't want to ask for help. So a lot of times, regardless to whether or not they're dealing with a disability, they're dealing with life aging issues. Many times they don't, uh, they really don't ask for that help that they need. And then there is in Baltimore City Housing, there's a thing called the security department. The security department is charged with going around and assessing these seniors in these buildings, especially within public housing, and assessing whether there's additional needs or whether or not they're in the right facility. Now she's on a second floor unit, so she has to walk up a large amount of stairs to get to the second floor. Um, Again, she's fragile. You can tell she's moving very slow as she ages. And there doesn't seem to be resources there. And then, like I said, the scar that's on the side of her face, she said she tells this story of how she used to be a head nurse and, you know, um, how she used to be a head nurse and, um, you know, that she knew how to take care of it herself. Now it was still a terrible scar. You could tell that she needed to go to the hospital, but obviously she did not go to the hospital. And again, her pride kicking in and her thinking that you know that she had the ability to do this herself. Um, it was just terrible to see her face like that. Um, it healed, but it had just a huge scar. You could see the depth of the scar, how deep the scar was, and you can tell that you know there was her face was cut completely open. You can tell. Um, um, but as we started going through, and when we got the complaints from McCullough Homes, and we started going into these housing projects, and I even started thinking about you know my life living in Brooklyn Homes and the seniors that lived there, and even folks that lived in the handicap units in the back of Brooklyn Homes and the handicap units. A lot of times we realized that these seniors weren't getting the services uh, that they really deserve and really need to get at. It almost seemed like, hey, we gave you this part, we gave you the housing, the subsidized housing, you know, or we gave you the housing that has handicap accessibility. The rest is on you. You know, you need to at this point really assess what your needs are and get the additional services. Reach out, call people, find out if there are additional resources. That's all on you. We did the bare basics. We gave you housing. We gave you subsidized housing. Um, in some cases, we feel that that's not good enough. Um, the other day, I was in a building, in a senior building. I went to go check up on a senior and run some errands for a senior. And as I'm walking down the corridor, the first time that I walked through, there was a person that was there coming my way in a walker, um, and she barely getting up. You know, she's trying to head to the day room. She's barely getting up, walking through, and uh, you could tell that she was very frail, walking up to the day room. As she passed by, there was just a body odor that just overwhelmed the corridor, and immediately I was like, oh my, like oh my, and I'm realizing that identifying it immediately, she's not getting the resources that she should be getting. Um, Most of these buildings are designed and set up where they're kind of a safety net because most of these folks don't have huge retirement savings. Many of them are living off of Social Security. Many of them are they're our cafeteria workers. They were our city workers. They were our janitors. They were folks that worked in the schools. They were folks that, um, you know, most of their lives worked some sort of job, but really didn't either plan well for retirement or other issues came up in life to where they may have utilized their retirement money. And by the time they reached the age of retirement, they really didn't have a lot of money, a lot of savings, a lot of benefits, pensions, things like that to tap into. Or they may only be relying on that pension. For example, there is a gentleman over in the Madison Avenue area, over by North Avenue. I'm really angry at this city that we allow things like this to happen. Here is a black Maryland state trooper. He was a Maryland state trooper. Looked like I believe he told me he had 25 years, 20 plus some odd years, almost 30 years in with the Maryland state troopers. And the man has a motorized wheelchair. He's confined to a motorized wheelchair. He's in a building that's supposed to be ADA compliant. And we found many ADA violations, adults with disability violations, um, in that building, which was quite disturbing for us because, again, we would think that someone who paid their service to our state, um, had the ability. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Um, and if you want to, again, donate, please donate. Uh, Matter of fact, I think I will update that real quick. Um, um, I'm sorry, it's weighing heavy on me because I'm thinking about how, again, this gentleman has served our state. Where we don't have a lot of black state troopers to begin with. Um, Here's a gentleman that, um, you know, uh, served the state, and when he's at retirement age, um, unfortunately, is in the position where um, he's not getting the services that he deserves. And obviously, I didn't get into the details, but obviously, something in reference to the way he gets his money, his pension, and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure. Um, let's see if this works here. There we go. So um, you have the Cash App and you have the PayPal if you want to donate either or. We appreciate uh, any donations that you give to allow us to keep coming on longer and stronger, and more often to bring you this information, to just have these conversations. And if you want to join the conversation, you can. Just in any of the feeds that you see, just go ahead and type in your message, and I will make sure uh, that we get it displayed. If you'd like to join the conversation, if you'd like to join really quick, I'm only going to be on here, maybe a half hour or less here. We got about another 15 minutes. If you do want to join us, you can. Um, and I will post that in the chats. Let's see here. Um, but what's interesting is that, um, and I will post that in the chat if y'all want to join us in studio. You can join us in studio. I just posted that to all the feeds, and maybe I will display that as well. Let me display that. But um, here's a gentleman that is living in a building that should be a senior type of living building, and unfortunately, um, this gentleman is living in a building that has definitely issues in reference to ADA. So he's definitely not getting the services that he should be getting in that building. The ramp for the wheelchair breaks down all the time. And when you look at the apartment setups, most of the apartment setups are not set up properly. Um, they don't have the amenities like they're supposed to, like, for instance, the wheelchair rails in the units. Um, they barely have a wheelchair rail. They barely have a real wheelchair rail on the outside in the corridors. The elevator breaks down all the time. He told us stories of him sleeping downstairs because the elevator wouldn't work. Can you imagine having to sit in a wheelchair all night long until someone finally comes the next morning or even the next afternoon? Because you might have somebody come in the morning, they're not able to service the elevator. And then you have to wait for a company to come service the elevator. So could you imagine just sitting there all night long? Um, that's just, to me, that's just um, deplorable. But he's told us stories about him um, just sitting all night long in the wheelchair, unable to get to his unit. And then, as I said, the units really and truly are not wheelchair accessible. They're not. Um, uh, the gentleman says that they blame him all the time in reference to scraping of the walls in his unit. Um, let me see here. If you'd like to join me as a guest, just uh, copy that link that you see down there or in the chat. Um, you could copy that link as well in the chat. But he says that they blame him all the time in reference to scraping up the walls with his wheelchair because he has a motorized wheelchair and he's constantly bumping into things. The units itself have these transitions from the walkway coming in to the apartments, and they have these little uh, pieces of strips to separate the wood floor, or the flooring, in some cases carpet, from the entrance coming into the door. So have them carpet strips, and he's constantly kind of pushing his wheelchair, the power extremely hard to try to get up over those obstacles. So it's not a flat, straight course that's easy and accessible, and allows him to be very mobile in his motorized wheelchair, and there's a few other folks that actually they can't afford a motorized wheelchair. It just so happens he must have really good insurance from being a state trooper, but he has a motorized wheelchair. But there's other tenants that have just regular wheelchairs. And matter of fact, that gentleman lives in another. There's two buildings over there at Madison. He lives in the second building, and in the second building, he has actually flipped over trying to get up a makeshift ramp that they made that's supposed to be ADA compliant, adults with disability compliant, and he constantly has to pop a wheelie to try to get up it, and often falls backwards and hits his head, and people have to come pick him up because he's unable to bring himself back up. So often he's laid there, laid backwards, waiting for someone to come through the door, which could be hours, could be minutes, could be overnight, and so it's unfortunate because, again, here's someone who is paying a subsidized rent. So he's still paying something, and is supposed to be getting, some sort of services. And that's the problem, is that these particular facilities, a lot of them are getting subsidized rent. So they are getting rent from Section 8, or they're getting rent from Department of Housing, from Baltimore City's Department of Housing. And a lot of these particular buildings are really safety nets. Without these buildings, in many cases, certain adults that are dealing with disabilities, and now they're starting to group all the adults in, even with mental health disabilities, people that are on SSDI, things of that nature. They're starting to pile them all into one building, and now you're seeing folks that are younger in these buildings mixed in there with these seniors. And in a lot of cases, they're preying on these seniors, even though they're getting SSDI and have their own issues. In many cases, they're in their scheming, and involved in all kinds of stuff. One particular building I remember with Brother Wayno, over there on 25th Street, the whole building had a rash of STDs throughout the building. I think it was like gonorrhea or something like that, because the young ones were in there basically preying, on the adults. They were literally preying on the adults, um, the older adults in that building. And that's kind of sad that situation uh, was like that. But that's, what unfortunately what happened in that particular building. Um, they had the older adults in there. Unfortunately, were being preyed upon by the young people that were now being pushed in to these units with them, which that shouldn't have been the case. But um, let's see, that shouldn't have been the case. But that's what was happening in this building. Um, let's see here. Okay, but that's what was happening in this building, unfortunately. All right, let's see. Okay, if you'd like to again join me as a guest, you can. Give you an opportunity. Only going to be on here for a few more minutes, and then I got to go. But um, these buildings are a safety net to prevent our aging adults from uh, ending up in the streets, in the parks, living in the streets. And in many cases, a lot of them are frail. Another situation, I went to go check up on a senior that we normally run errands on. Lady was coming down the corridor. Now, this is a newer building. And this building tends to be a little bit better, and better as far as the amenities are concerned. Um, and Newer building. Um, Lady was coming up the hallway, and she was, dragging herself with her feet, and dragging herself up the corridor in a wheelchair. Almost same situation. As I passed her, you could smell the urine. Obviously, Um, a lot of these seniors are not 100% capable of doing things like keeping their hygiene well. They're frail. Um, they're unable, in some cases, to do things in the house like basic chores. Um, they are struggling to do basic chores. Um, if they're weak and fragile like that and frail like that, how do you expect them in some cases to even take their trash? And what we're finding is that a lot of the property managers that are in these buildings have no empathy, have no supportive services, have nothing for these seniors in means of trying to take care of them and help them out in these situations. They're not trying to truly help them out and make sure that they're okay. Provide additional services, residential services, things of that nature inside these buildings. And a lot of these seniors have way too much pride, especially black seniors, especially black aging adults, tend to have way too much pride. And in many cases, don't want to have anybody, again, meddling or anybody prying. Um, um, don't want anybody prying, um, in their lives. And it's understandable, but um, in some cases, they need the additional services. They need folks to check up on them and just do a wellness check. Um, and so, uh, which brings me to my final story in reference to our aging adults. We get a phone call today about one of our aging adults that we check up one of our aging adults that we check up on all the time, just to make sure that they're okay. And we run some errands for that aging adult person. We run some errands for them. We get a phone call today that housing didn't pay their additional subsidized rent. And what we found out, the reason why that they didn't pay their rent was because they did recently a inspection of her unit and found that the house was a little bit dirty. She has some trash in there because she normally has folks come in and take out her trash because she's unable to. She barely walks. She's walking with a walker, and sometimes she's walking with a cane just to get to the door, and it takes her a minute or two to get to the door. And when she explained to management, that she uh, often pays someone to take the trash for her. She has a family member that comes by and folks that come by to check up on her to take the trash out for her. They said, "Oh, no, 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 no. That's a violation of your lease. You're not allowed to let anybody in to the unit. So that means you can't allow somebody to come in and help you out. You're not allowed to let someone in if you are frail. And what else are you supposed to do at that point? Are you trying to tell me that, it's almost like in some cases they're forcing them to have to go with another option instead of independent living? They're trying to force them into the option of more assisted care or even into a nursing home. And for many folks, there's a stigma behind nursing homes. For many folks, they don't want to be in a nursing home type of environment, especially when you don't have a private room, you don't have a private unit. You may be in a more communal space, so it may be you and two other patients in a room, and you have to deal with them. And um, we have a grandmother now that's in a nursing home now, and all kinds of stuff from people walking in her room and stealing her items and all kinds of stuff that the family comes and brings her, like you know the, now you got to deal with a whole different environment. Now she's reached a point in life, to where she's frail and dementia and things like that have kicked in, to the point where she cannot function for herself. But there are still some folks that are functional, that are not dealing with dementia, but are maybe dealing with a little bit of physical disabilities, and they are doing the best that they can. to survive. And unfortunately, um, it doesn't seem like there's a real Department of Aging. We have testified in reference to a Department of Aging, really codifying and building that true Department of Aging that looks at these issues, quality of life issues, that goes around these buildings and inspect these buildings and do, make recommendations and even provide additional wraparound services. And unfortunately, that's not the case currently. We don't have a system in place like that. And so that's why, again, I keep saying to you, this election cycle to me is going to be one of the most important election cycles. Do we want to continue to have what's currently happening to our aging adults now in this situation in reference to um, our senior queen, and I'm going to say senior queen. What's happening is that they want to evict her. They want to evict her. They want to put her out. They didn't pay this month's rent for her subsidized rent. They didn't pay the subsidy side of it. There's a certain portion that she has to commit to. She paid her part only to find out that they didn't pay the subsidized part. That housing didn't pay the subsidized part. So now she's looking at her rent's not fully paid. And on top of that, they are filing in an eviction process. Now, I keep asking, where is this senior going to go? Where's she going to go? And you're going to rip her out of the only home that she's known for. I think she's been there easily maybe 10 years, if not more. You're going to rip her out of the only home that she knows instead of trying to find ways to work with her, to assist her, to get her some additional resources. Where's the residential services? Where's the additional services? Why in a building like this that is getting, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in subsidies and guaranteed rents, guaranteed money coming into a brand new facility that probably doesn't really need a lot of maintenance? Why doesn't a facility like this have just one gentleman that goes around, a maintenance guy, a janitor, somebody that goes around on a regular trash day and knocks on the door, and or even folks take the trash and put the trash outside the door, and that gentleman comes through and takes that trash out for the residents, someone who's more physically capable of handling trash, the weight of the trash. Why isn't that necessarily happening? I have no idea why a lot of these buildings don't have some sort of service like that allows seniors um, uh, to be able to not have to deal with certain things like that could easily hurt them. They hurt their back trying to lift a heavy bag of trash, things like that. So I'm not exactly sure why um, there's nothing in place in a lot of these buildings to do that. It almost seems like they're quick to take these seniors' money, these aging adult citizens' money, but they're not willing to, in many cases, provide services, additional services. You get what you get. You got a unit. You're not on the streets. You're paying the subsidized rent. Get the hell up. Die gracefully. That's what they're almost looking like. That's the attitude of a lot of these property managers, of a lot of these property management companies that are in charge of watching over these adult aging adult facilities. Um, and we got to do better. Again, this is to me going to be the most important election cycle. I'm not going to lay out the blueprint, but Yolanda has a blueprint based on what she has experienced. She has based on her experience that she has seen, that she has addressed, that she has dealt with, that she has had to battle and have fights in reference to housing, in reference to these situations. Um, so she has a blueprint that she's laying out in reference to really developing a true Department of Aging. And we don't want to give all the secret sauce out now because unfortunately people like Bob Wallace and Sheila Dixon and them, they have no clue. They really don't know how to address this community because they've never really had to put their hands on and serve this community. They're not serving this community. They may say, hey, they see each other. They go in the senior building. They see each other. Hey, Sheila, I love you. You know, vote for me. Bob Wallace, same thing. He's going into the trenches and it's like, hey, I'm Bob Wallace, you know, and uh, it's like, I'm Bob Wallace, vote for me, but have you ever served in any one of these buildings? Have you ever helped a senior out in any one of these buildings? Have you gone grocery shopping? Have you gone to pick up their money orders for rent? Have you taken out their trash? Have you had an opportunity to sit in their houses and talk to them, and assess the wellness of them? Have you heard their stories of how they served our state, our great state of Maryland? Have you really touched the bases of these families and learned some of the stories? Like, for instance, the lady, who's from Katrina, and FEMA just left up here. And technically, when we spoke to her, she wants to go back to Texas. All of her family has moved from New Orleans. They have, what family is left is now all stationary, and they're now all in Texas. So many of them have not gone back to New Orleans. New Orleans, as former Commissioner Michael Harrison used to say, New Orleans. Many of them have not gone back to New Orleans. That many of them are living in Texas and different cities in Texas, and she wants to go back. And you got to listen to her story to understand, how she got displaced, during Hurricane Katrina. And this is an option that FEMA presented to her and her daughter at the time, as opposed to them being put in a trailer. I don't know. I might have wanted to stay in a trailer, you know, than to be transplanted to a housing projects, McCullough Homes, um, in Baltimore City, place where she can't really come out because of the violence. She can't really go out because of the violence. And that's another senior that has folks that work with her, that check up on her, folks that are not as fragile as she is, that check up on her. Good thing there is a community there, especially among the senior residents there. There is a community there. Thank God there is, because that community checks up on her and helps her get her groceries, and helps her to run small little errands, and even in some cases will help give her a ride when she does need a ride. But most of the time she's captive in that house, and she's in unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar grounds. And even though there's love from the community there watching over her, she doesn't have the love of her family, the people that she knew growing up, the family that she took care of in New Orleans, the celebrations, going to family members' houses and the holidays and celebrating the holidays together. She doesn't have that anymore. She's basically isolated, locked in her apartment. This is not, to me, quality of life. And this is why Yolanda Pulley, who is your candidate for mayor for Baltimore City, is actually drafting a blueprint. I believe that section is finalized pretty much too as well. Is actually formulating a blueprint to address this community, to make sure that we take care of our aging adults first. We have to have, a pyramid. We have to have a certain set of level and responsibilities and accountability. We have to have things set up at different levels. And our top priority should be our aging adults. They have paved the way for us. They have dealt with a Jim Crow Baltimore. They have dealt with the 1960s and the 1950s, the civil rights struggles, the white supremacy, and the systematic and institutional racism. Working at all of these different institutions, whether it's the school system, whether it's John Hopkins, whether it's, at the stadium, at the old Memorial Stadium, whatever their career and their life may have been, they have paved the way. They have paid their dues. And in many cases, we should be honoring them. We should be taking care of them. We should be making sure that there is a quality of life for each and every one of our seniors, for each and every one of our aging adults in the city. And there shouldn't be predatory practices. There shouldn't be things that make them feel a certain kind of way, because at this time of life, there's no reason why someone who's 70 some odd years old should be worried about, where am I going to go? How am I going to fix this situation? Because they're trying to put me out. They're trying to evict me. We're doing things so wrong in reference to our seniors. They are our golden treasures, and they are to be respected. They are to be honored. Um, they are to be appreciated. And whatever we have to do to provide those resources for our seniors should be priority number one. Then we can look at children and families. Then we can look at, you know, uh, uh, economic, the economic engine, the workforce opportunities, things like that. All that stuff should trickle after we do the first thing, and that's take care of our seniors. So with that, family, that is your morning burnt toast. I put a slide in earlier when I first started the broadcast, and hopefully that slide becomes the slide to start off this broadcast that you see. Um, Again, this is going to be a really important election cycle to me. If we don't get this right this time, we are doomed in our community. I keep telling y'all that I'm following this social media influencer, and I need to see if we can get him on the program. But he's been talking about, if we uh, don't find that Moses-like person, and I do believe, I say this all the time, that I do believe that Yolanda Pulley is that Moses-like person. But if we don't find that Moses-like person for our community, that's unapologetically for our community, we are destined to be politically extinct within 5 years. And I believe that. This is what the social media influencer is saying, and I need to bring him on, and we need to have a great conversation in reference to that. But, you know, uh, yeah, we are going to be politically extinct within 5 years, and technically within 1 4 year election cycle period. So not this presidential election cycle, but whatever happens from this presidential election cycle in 4 years from now, most of us in most of our urban cities are going to be politically extinct. So, but what is your greatest superpower? What is your greatest superpower? Your greatest superpower is that you vote. That is your greatest superpower. Aristotle said in the 4th century that the greatest virtue is citizenship. It's basically practicing citizenship. It's basically utilizing your citizenship. And utilizing your citizenship, the definition of, putting forth your citizenship is you vote, you partake in jury duty, you, even in some cases, whether you believe so or not, you partake in an army, in a military, to protect your nationalism, to protect your citizenship, to protect your country. These are the greatest virtues. You know, your vote, you voting, you partaking in legislation, you lobbying as the people for certain pieces of legislation and giving testimony in reference to certain pieces of legislation. You don't allow your legislators, especially your city council, you don't allow them to formulate legislation. Legislation should come from the people, not from the politicians. We have it backwards. Your legislators are the ones that formulate legislation based on your needs, and they shouldn't be speaking up for you. In many cases, you see, that there's pieces of legislation that come out that was formulated by a city council. Well, who told you to do that? In many cases, these uh, policies and pieces of legislation do not connect. They don't coincide with the people. They don't connect with the people. In many cases, they're predatory against the people, especially against marginalized and poor communities. So we have to understand our citizenry duty, and our greatest superpower is our vote. So I love y'all family. Y'all have an opportunity. Like I said, you could donate. Any little thing helps, allows me to get gas money, allows me to continue to keep paying for this platform. I'm really starting to like this platform a lot. And the tools and utilities, way better than StreamYard to me. Um, right now, we are broadcasting on Facebook Live, on People Empowered by the Struggle, on Urban City News. We're also live on um, my personal page, Product of the Environment, my regular page. We're also uh, posting on Twitter or X, and we're also live on Instagram and YouTube right now, all at the same time. So you can catch this broadcast anywhere you want to. But love y'all family. Y'all be blessed. As I always say when I sign off, go out there and do something special for someone other than your own selfish self. So till next time, family, be blessed. Peace.